May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable now in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Jesus asked two of John's followers, "What are you looking for?" And in the context of John's gospel, it was not merely what bus are you looking for or what Vikings team are you hoping for next year. It was a much deeper question. It was a big life question. What are you looking for? So what are you looking for? What are you looking for personally? The bishop asked me that in so many words last spring. She asked me, what are you looking for when you wrap up the interim assignment that you're currently serving? My answer was, nothing. I'm looking for a break. I'm looking for downtime. After 12, 13 years of continuous interim work, often intense in congregations, needing to rebuild trust, needing healing after congregational conflict, and so on and so forth, I just needed some downtime, and I got some. But I'm happy to say I'm with you now at Calvary, fully charged, ready to go. And it's kind of nice. It's really nice that it's not a situation of congregational conflict for a change. But what are you looking for? What are you looking for in your own life? What are you looking for in our nation? With the inauguration this coming Friday of our new president-elect, perhaps what you were looking for last year looks very different from what you are looking at today. It's a profound spiritual question Jesus puts to these two seekers. What are you looking for? And I would expect them to answer in an equally profound way. Well, we're looking for the meaning of life. Well, we're looking for our purpose, Jesus, in life. We're looking for the path to God, something deeper than where are you staying? It seems kind of superficial, doesn't it? I mean, nothing wrong with it. It seems kind of superficial to me. We're kind of curious, Jesus, are you staying at your folks' place or your siblings' place? Do you have your own apartment? Maybe they're just curious. What is this guy like when he's just at home chilling after all his public preaching and teaching? But actually, their response, where are you staying, in John's gospel, it turns out is not superficial at all. Because in John's gospel, it's all about staying. It's all about remaining. It's all about abiding. John 1:14, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. John 14, verses 2-3, in my Father's house are many dwelling places. I go to prepare a place for you. I will come again and take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. John 15, verse 4, abide in me as I abide in you. So it's really not superficial at all. They are interested in staying with Jesus. So John says, Jesus invites them, come and see, and what happens? They came and saw where he was staying, and they remained with him that day. You and I are influenced most by those we stay with, those we remain with, those we hang in there with. Our views are shaped by those we surround ourselves with, by the voices we hear most often. Our sight is affected by those we look with. And I have to believe that Jesus' disciples were influenced not just by what they saw and heard when he was in public preaching and teaching and healing people, but they were profoundly shaped by what they observed and absorbed between the lines as they remained with Jesus day in and day out, including after hours, when he wasn't on stage. At home Thanksgiving weekend, we rented and watched a movie called Imperium. It came out in 2016. I don't know how popular it was. In this movie, Daniel Radcliffe, aka Harry Potter, plays an FBI agent who infiltrates a white supremacy group. And this group is plotting a terror attack. Coincidentally, after I watched that movie the same day, I stumbled upon an article in the New York Times. It was entitled, "Why I Left White Nationalism" by R. Derek Black. If you're curious, I'm looking up November 26, 2016. R. Derek Black was born into a prominent, if you will, white supremacist family. His godfather is David Duke. His father started Stormfront, which was the first major white nationalist website. Black was considered the future of that movement. But then he began attending a college a few years ago, he writes, where his presence, not surprisingly, sparked great controversy. But this is what he writes. He says, "Through many talks with devoted and diverse people there, people who chose to invite me into their dorms and conversations rather than ostracize me, I began to realize the damage I had done. Ever since, I have been trying to make up for it." And he further adds these words, "That kind of persuasion happens in person-to-person interactions, and it requires a lot of honest listening on both sides." In other words, staying, remaining, abiding with someone. For those of you on Facebook, for those of you here this morning who consider yourselves of a, let's say, a progressive/liberal point of view on many things, I heard a few days ago, maybe you've heard this, some study, it's unconfirmed by the CIA or the FBI, unconfirmed, but this group of people, liberals, progressives on Facebook, unfriend people at a higher rate than so-called conservative people. Staying, remaining, abiding. What are you looking for? Where are you staying? Jesus says, come and see. That is a human invitation and a divine one, spoken to me and you by the risen Christ, hopefully heard as we gather together as seekers in Christian community. Come. Leave what you cling to in fear. And sometimes more out of a worldview shaped by racial privilege and opportunity than by the kingdom or the reign of God. Come, leave. Have the courage to step away and then see. Have your eyes opened to see yourself and the world, the church, even God, in new ways. I read President Obama recently said that he still believes the world is bent towards justice. He was paraphrasing Dr. Martin Luther King, who said in August 1967 to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." What are you looking for? Are you looking for a world in which God's love and mercy and justice prevail? Are you looking for a world where all people in this country, in Dr. King's vision, can live in freedom, with dignity, with rights protected by the law? How is your sight? How are you seeing? Martin Luther King saw his vision from afar. He was like Moses. He wasn't going to live to enter the promised land, but he was a visionary, so he saw a lot of things that other people couldn't see. And he tried to lead them there with him. He saw the big picture. But I don't believe he was optimistic. I've seen that written. I don't believe he was optimistic. I think people are almost born optimists or pessimists. It's not about optimism, is it? I believe his was a vision based on faith. He saw with the eyes of faith what you can't see without it. I believe his was a vision based on the witness of the Scriptures, Old and New Testament, which proclaims that God is going to get the last word, and that we can at least have a glimpse of how the story will turn out in the end. On the other hand, if you're just looking at what's right in front of you, if you're just looking at what's on the immediate horizon, how can you not lose heart in regards to so many things, so often? Jesus bids us come and see, but see is a word that means not just to see with the eyes, but to see with the mind, to perceive, to know. Those are the eyes of faith. In King's 1967 speech, he was actually paraphrasing Theodore Parker, who was a Unitarian Universalist minister who lived a century before. Parker lived from 1810 to 1860. He's someone that's been quoted by Abraham Lincoln, a contemporary among others. He was an abolitionist who died less than a year before the Civil War broke out. But he foresaw the end of slavery with these words: "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. And from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice." Theodore Parker, Martin Luther King, and others have been able to see things that most of us aren't able to see. Because we can only see what's right in front of us. We can only see what appears to be just on the horizon for tomorrow, but we can't see the big picture. We don't see with the eyes of faith. But Jesus bids us to have courage. Take heart. Come and see. Step away from what you cling to in fear. Step away from the darkness. Dare to step into the light, even when it's kind of painful. And begin to see in some new ways. For all of us, our views, our values, our vision is shaped most by those we stay with, those we remain with, those we abide with, including the risen one who bids us come and see. So will we remain in community with the risen one and with one another? And will we abide with, will we hang in there with those who may not see the way we see, at least today? Amen.